Peace, everyone. Peace. Well, welcome to midday affirmation. The midday affirmative. You know, um, I'm Aki Low. So it's my turn again. Know what I'm talking about? So um, this strong. Well, starting new strong. Um, we're talking about planting your own flag, right? And so I came up with this um one by being um doing what I do. I watch a lot of movies, and one of the movies that I was watching was Casino. That's one of my favorite ones. And there's a part in the movie where Ace, he's worrying about his license, right? And then he's talking to Nikki, and Nikki's like, license, man, whatever about a license. I put my own flag out here. You won't need a license. And that uh line always was, getting to me and getting to me. And, I went back to an archive show that she did, called Flags of Victory, right? And it got me thinking more about, basically planting your own flag. Um, because historically, you see, sometimes people with, their flags, their banners, or their standards, and like when they come to a place or a new place, they come and they plant their flag in the ground, and you know that's when they start to build and make something new, um and take their standards and create civilization or an empire, um and things like that. So we know that standards is something that you stand hard on, you know. And so, by basically, standing hard on whatever, you're standing for, I thought basically, what is it that we plant that we stand hard on? What are those flags that we stand hard on? You can do that with anything, with your homestead, with your family mission, you know, which chief has told you to have more than once, even if you don't have your own family crest or whatever, a family flag or things like that. But it had me thinking, especially when, I was watching, Chief this last retreat, and I was, you know, I was looking at his t-shirt, and I was like, oh, look, he got the nice fresh, Chief, you got joint on, I was like, then I looked at it a little bit more, and I was like, don't that look like the Sankofa? Oh, I see, And then it clicked in my head, you know, on what was really happening at that time, what I'm talking about. But peace for everyone that just came into the room, what I'm saying, or in the house, what I'm talking about. Peace and Manaya, DJ Shmoney, what's up, brother Ra, and um Sister Iris, and what's up, Master Minulek, So that's what came to my mind, because another thing was, she talks about, what do I stand for? I knew, and and who's my family? I knew, and there was, he's showing it in symbols, and it clicked for me, you know, that that's the flag and that's what he's planting, And sometimes, flag planting can be an idea, or it can be a movement, you know. Um, and sometimes it can, you know, be the rallying cry, to bring others around you or to deter others from being around you, you know. So that's what I came up with, or what I thought about, um especially, you know, or at least that's what's been on my mind this strong, and I really want to get into it and whatnot. So, um, other than that, I'm, I started off intro, and now I'm gonna get, everybody else's insight because I ain't gonna be talking all through this. You know what I'm talking about? But let's build on it. You know what I'm talking about? On what we stand hard on and what we plant, as flags and flags for ourselves. You know what I'm talking about? So, so I invite everybody in. You know what I'm talking about? Go ahead and share and build. You know what I'm talking about? So, let's get it.
Greetings and salutations, Aki Lo and Clubhouse Land. First thing that when you started talking about the flag came to my head, I put on, I put on. That's the first thing that came to my head. I put on for my city. Like,
on for my city.
when you
Yeah.
plant that flag, you letting people know this is where I am and this is where I stand, and we're gonna conquer territory. Like this is my land. It makes me think about sports and even football when certain end zones that one is now starting to conquer territory or conquer that land and starting to push this other person back. And when one starts to plant a flag or plant a culture, then it makes me even think about the body and how the body is no more than a vehicle for the soul to travel. So now, when I plant that flag, I'm letting you know of my culture and what I'm about. That ultimately, what is housing that, what we would say, Ruach Kodesh, or that spirit, right? So now I'm planting that flag to let you know, oh, okay, now when I see that flag waving, or when I see this person, it is now symbolizing whatever it is that they stand on, or whatever it is that they are professing, or being their professional, what Master Menelek was speaking about the other day, of just letting you know this is where I am. And when you see it, it's no different than when people wear little flags or something out the back. Like, they letting you know what group I'm a part of and what we're about and what we stand for. So I think that was just the first thing that popped in my head when you were speaking about the flag and planting that flag. Uh, yeah, what do people see then when that flag is waving in the air?
Yeah, bro. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's putting on, representing your culture and everything, but you know, I think, some people do that, but they don't. Um, they misrepresent it in a sense where, uh, they repping other people's flags and not their own. They, like, we will represent or big up or, talk about, case in point, where we're all from. What city we're from, especially if you're up north. What city you're from. Even when we, about to fight, we gotta let people know where we from. But none of us don't own no land. One thing about planting your flag is you gotta own the land or conquer the land, in order for you to really represent it, you know. So, it's kind of crazy, that you do that, or you represent somebody else's flag, that isn't your own. Basically, planting someone else's ideals or culture, you know, and sometimes that's also why you have to be so careful, you know, um, on, you know, knowing what, flag you are representing, or what flag's been planted, what flag's been planted in your head, you know, or what coach has been planted, for you to represent. Because it may not that culture or that flag may not, have your best interests at heart. That's outside it. May, that's the that's the it doesn't. It just doesn't. So you also have to be careful. But it I also wanted to say that, playing your flag also brings like minded people, or you know around you, to form culture and community. You know, um, like I've been watching um like the Wu-Tang Clan's TV series, right? And one thing that was interesting, where they're about to perform at the Fever, you know, I bet Chief know what the fever is. Apparently, I thought it was the tunnel, but hey, I'm young, but they're about to perform at the fever, and Divine's girlfriend Shuri, right? She's in the club, with him, and she hands Divine a flag, with the Wu Tang symbol on it, and she says, this flag, when y'all go into war, y'all, rock this flag, and let y'all know y'all got an army behind you, you know. And it was interesting that it was the woman that, made the flag and then gave it to her man, you know what I'm talking about, for them, to basically, stand on and wave and things like that. I found that to be very interesting, especially when especially when this topic came into my head, So, you know, when we
Peace, everyone.
oh,
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Master
I
Langlet.
did. I thought you were finished. My bad.
No,
Peace to
you good,
everyone
bro.
in the. Okay, good. Thanks. Yeah, peace to everyone in the space. When you were talking, it's interesting. We were talking about this a few nights ago in terms of just strategy games, and you had sent me that clip, and the first thing that came to mind is when you go into someone else's territory, you carrying your flag. And as soon as you take them over, like they now have to don your colors, or they now have to, like you were saying earlier, adopt your culture. You know, and Chief had said this on numerous occasions as well. The easiest way to control the people is to give them your mind. And I saw one clip. Um, it was like a travel guide, and they said, certain parades you can take part of when you go to certain cities, and one of them was the St. Patrick's Day parade. And I'm like, 95% of these people probably ain't even Irish, but they're taking on a mentality of, I have an excuse to do something that doesn't necessarily like it doesn't mean anything to you. I still don't know what that holiday is about. I just know people like to drink and wear green. That's it, But you're taking on this identity or this mentality for this date, and people do it for numerous different holy days and for numerous different groups too. Or like anyone with a flag, like they're willing to get under their flag. But if you say I don't celebrate that, all of a sudden now it's a problem. You know, your flag is like it represents your boundaries. If we and then within these boundaries, this is what we do. And if you don't rock with that, all right, you could stay outside of the boundaries. But now you feel offended because it seems like I'm excluding you. Or you may even feel offended because I chose to abstain from a certain activity. Like, no, we don't do that. You know, just saying I don't do that here, it's like, oh, why it gotta be all that? It's not all that serious. It's just harmless fun. You know, people come up with all kind of silly excuses just to engage in whatever they want to engage in. But of course, these are people who haven't planted their flags, you know, like you said, in their own minds. Like they have no culture, they have no standard. It's just whatever's fun, um, and doesn't draw blood from people as far as they can tell. You know, it's good. You know, so and that's what came to mind when you brought up this topic.
Peace, y'all. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, these are all good points that you guys are bringing up so far. I concur with what everybody has said so far. And when you say planting a flag, a couple things come to mind. So first, I think of war. Whenever we're talking about you know uh, planting a flag, war comes to mind, and we often don't like associate like some of our actions, like Master Mendelek was just saying, like some of our actions of like engaging in other person's culture, where they planted their flag, and they've planted their culture, in many forms and fashion, and they advertise it through the media, and they create all of these different avenues for it to be celebrated, and when we celebrate those things like Christmas, we're being treacherous, we're committing treason, because we haven't actually explored and created those boundaries in our mind, and created that land of of harmony in our mind, and united with the proper source, or the soil, the proper soil, the rich soil, the abundant soil, so um, that also brings me to like planting your flag, like you were like Akilo was talking about, on Chief's shirt, was his brand, right? It's a brand that was created. So like oftentimes like we don't recognize like we're in war of all sorts, and one of the most I say effective wars that's been waged on us is the economic war. So like when we don't build and create our economic means, and we're subject to having to celebrate others' victory, which is in turn that treason, that treason, on our own it's treason on our own, people in our own mind, I should say, because they do not have the same values and principles, that we do, you know, and so, we don't want to, you know, celebrate our own demise, so we have to, that the only other option is for us to create, our own, create our own flag, and plant it upon, rich soil, abundant soil. We when we do that internally, then externally, that would be, examples of like creating a business, and you know, and you see like what's required, in order to plant a flag, like you said, like Akilo said, you have to have a soil, you know. And do you want to plant your flag in, soil that is fertile, or soil that is, malnutrition? You know what I mean? So you start to see like what are the requirements? Like, okay, I have a brand now. Like, what else? What's next? What else do I have to do? In order to properly engage in war. And in order to properly take back, the land that's mine. You know, in order to properly protect my mind, and engage further on those through those doors, that were once locked and once closed. How do I, expand, my mind, and conquer new elements, new areas. So, that was something that I just wanted to throw in the mix and add to the cipher. Peace to the gods.
Already give thanks. you know,
For sure.
give thanks to Master Mingler for talking about that clip. I got him because you know, I like that I like that campaign just cause, you basically see yourself in a sense as the conqueror, as the melanin rich statesman as well, because you have to, build up your resources and you have to build up your kingdom and things like that. And I think, we've been trained out of that, besides, buying a house, instead of buying land or anything, which is basically planting, your own flag, when you buy land. And then you have to, um make things or have things to protect that land that you have, you know, or sustain you on that land, and then you have to think, what do I have, on this land or in this house, you know, that helps me protect or sustain myself, you know, um, and then planting your flag, um like I said, could also be an idea that you want to plant in someone else, sort of. It can also be sort of like, I want to say education in a sense, where you bring something out of somebody, you know um like how we call each other, brother or sister or Emma or Abba, and that's bringing something out of someone, um, and also planting that flag, on someone to look at themselves like that and bring them further um, into the culture. You know what I'm talking about, and bring forth, a standard, something to stand hard on. You may stand hard on bringing that brother, somebody can come to, or that mother that nurtures, or teaches all the children, even if they aren't your own, you know, and things like that. Um, or that father that is, the protector of all the culture's children or all the community's children. You know what I'm talking about? So yeah, um, like I said, I'm not gonna talk through all of this, but there's just so much you can build off of, and yeah, standards um are used for warfare, especially, historically, when I think of standards, I sometimes think of the Romans, when they had the eagle, perched up, and they'll have that, and then they have, the legion and things like that under it and things like that, and then they'll take that into war and into battle, and then you see the same thing like with the Greeks or something, or then they have think, symbols painted on their shields and things like that, already showing solidarity or unity, within that standard and within that banner and flag, and then, when you conquer, you do plant that flag in other people. We've seen it historically, but it doesn't always have to be through subjugation, or warfare, but Chief just came up into the house, you know what I'm talking about? So look, I know you got something to say, so I'm gonna let him talk, you know what I'm talking about? So peace, Chief, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Yeah, peace. I actually wasn't gonna say anything yet. I was just running back up, but I guess I could say, when you think about flags. So I know that the title of the segment is planting your flag. But there's the other aspect to that too is sometimes people have flags planted in their heart, and as a result, they're always waving a flag. Like yes, you have national flags, you have familial flags, you have tribal flags, but you also have flags of surrender. And some people have been so thoroughly conquered inside of their psyche that they're forever waving a white flag of surrender, looking to uh, negotiate, their surrender, or to try to negotiate, if not their surrender, negotiate or mitigate some sort of losses that they've already experienced. So, a lot of times I would say when people don't go through the work of establishing a family identity, because that's what a flag does. It not only provides presence, even if you're not there. Like if you go into um, certain fields of athleticism, even certain church environments, they'll have flags of different nations, up on the wall or whatever, and or even learning institutions. And what that provides for those institutions and for those countries or people, it provides presence, even when there's no organic presence. So if you haven't gone through that work of establishing a flag in that sense, then you maybe have not outlined and outfitted your familial or tribal presence, your familial and tribal identity as of yet. You know, the other thing I would say in regards to that, when you have flags, it lets you know as spiritual warriors who to fight for. So if we go into a space, we go into a temple, and there are, five or six or seven or eight family flags, while we are affirming, while we are ritualizing, and while we are sending forth positive energy for those that we care for, we can see those flags and say, these are also people that we should be concerned for. No different than if you had different nation flags. And in 1960, when Nigeria uh, regained its independence, um, it put up its own flag. But prior to that, it had the flag of Great Britain. That was the Nigerian flag, the flag of Great Britain. So um, I would say that having that flag, yes, it creates presence, it creates identity, but it also lets people who are moving in the same spiritual manner to know who it is that they should affirm for, who it is that they should pray for, and who it is that they should lock in arms with, just by the presence of a flag or a family crest or whatever. But when that's not present, I think you're waving the flag of surrender. So I think there's only two ways. It's binary. Either you have your flag, or you have a flag, a white flag of family of surrender, constantly waving over your head, even if it's unconscious.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Good, thanks for that. I'm glad you said that, Chief. When you talk about waving a white flag of surrender, in people's hearts, because they do, they don't want confrontation or competition, or to plant their own flag within their heart. So they just wave the white flag and then just go along with any other flag, that they see. You know what I'm saying? And when you were talking about, having that presence, it made me think of, well, more than one place, yeah, church. I know, because I remember, there was the American flag, and then there was this Christian flag that I didn't know nothing about. But like, what? I was wondering why that was there. Or public school. You gotta say the Pledge of Allegiance, but that flag was always standing high, on the wall in the room, for you to do. So when you said that, I was like, man, that presence was always around, and I may not have known that was what that was about, but now I get it. That that presence was there, or that idea and standard was there, in a sense, And when you talk about, having familiar flags, it's sort of look, it made me think of Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about? When you always hear the call, hear them say, we gotta summon the bannerman, and these were, other lords and other nobles that had their own, crest and flag and sigil and whatnot, but they fall on the main head or lord's flag, but they had their own, but they rallied around the main or the main house's sigil flag. You always saw that, where it was Karstarks or uh what um no, Tully was the main one. But anyway,
Lannisters.
I ain't about to name them all. But go ahead, Zach.
I was just saying the Lannisters.
Yeah, the Lannisters be a main one because everybody would, because they had their own bannerman as well. You know what I'm talking about? But I mean, I wasn't trying to name a main house. Like a main house that actually ran that whole region. Um,
I
but
forgot which one Theon
You had
Greyjoy is with.
the Targaryens, I think, was one name. You had the Aryans, you had the Tullys, you had Greyjoy. They were from the Pikes.
all
You
of them are
had
main houses.
you had you had the Baratheons from Storm's End.
Baratheons
Yeah.
was a main house.
Um,
you have to okay, like the high towers. There's one. The high towers, they were a minor house, but they were pretty much under uh, the homies that ran that had all the money. Growing strong. Okay,
the
the words was
Baelish was
yep.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Bannerford. Um,
Yep.
I remember these from the book, not from the show. But Blackmire was another one.
Yep.
Um, there's a bunch of them.
Valerian.
There's a lot of houses.
Valerian.
Yeah, the Cox of Salt Pan was one. But I don't know if those were all on the show. But I know from the book there was a ridiculous amount of houses. You know.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But they all banded together, even
Yeah.
in their own region. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were down in the Martell's region, they had their own bannermen, and they had their own flags, Um, even with Storm's End, they had their own bannermen, and the Lannisters, of course they had their own bannermen at one time. And shoot, and when it came to them, they were they were in conflict with another house, the Range, you know what I'm talking about, that also, had their own flag, and then they had to, like, hey, we got to get them, and that's what they did. And they made a whole song about it and made it sound cool. you know, who don't know that song? The Reigns of Castamere. you know, just telling you how we went to war with a family. You know what I'm saying? We had this conflict. They thought they was better than us, and then we proved that we were the victors, and this is how we got rid of them. To say the least, But they made the song sound so good though, But things like that, things that rally and build, familiar bonds into something bigger and greater. You know, I liked that when you saw that. Otherwise you just, like you said, making, just having a white flag of surrender. You always have to, be willing to, go to war, even for your standards, what I'm saying? And have those boundaries that no one cross. Otherwise, you do have a white flag, and then you be like some people celebrating St. Patrick's Day and your butt ain't Irish. you know. Like I've never been to a St. Patrick's Day parade. Like I'm not Irish. You know what I'm talking about. Or it couldn't even be that. You could, like some people, I couldn't understand it. I still don't understand it. But some people they 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 rep college football teams. And they never went to that college. They was like for me, they be like, why you don't represent Roll Tide and whatnot? I'm like, cause I didn't go to that college. Like I didn't graduate from there. you know, it be just because you lived or you born in that state, so you gotta celebrate it. Everything on college. It's like I didn't go there. Why would I do that? But it also brings solidarity because sometimes it brings people together. Under that kind of flag of so-called education and things like that. But that there's just so many analogies that you can use. But yeah, the war and the surrendering is one. And when you look at certain cultures that didn't have standards or flags or banners and things that people could or things that people could rally around, they ended up surrendering very quick, to people that did have that standard and presence under their own dang on flag. So that is a lot to say when you have some a white flag of surrendering, planted on your heart. That now you have to replace with your own flag, which you're going to have to go to war for, even within yourself. You know what I'm talking about? But I'm done. Go ahead and build on it.
I think there's a good point that you just made in terms of going to war for your flag, and it's important to have a flag. Like if you even look at the LGBTQ plus community, they have over 21 flags inside of that community, right? So you speak about the solidarity, and it's interesting. Like as soon as someone identifies themselves as being a shade, that exists inside of that community, they go to work on the flag. Like you have a transgender flag, you have a progress pride flag. Even Philadelphia has its own pride flag, which has a little brown stripe in it. Then you have the non-binary flag. You got an asexual flag, bisexual flag, pansexual flag. Like it just goes on and on and on, right? But I think one of the important things to keep in mind is that we're not idol worshippers. And that's something that has always been an issue as far as with divine original people is us following trends, as we go from nation to nation, doing what the other nations do. So even when you look at like the idol work, like going to war for the flag, and I know what you mean, but I'm just saying like some people do go to war for a flag, literally. Like when you pledge allegiance to the flag and you bow, you get down on one knee because somebody puts a flag in front of you, you are literally idol worshiping. So even if it's your own flag, when you have allegiance to the flag and not to the entity that the flag represents ownership to, because your flag, like your last name, should always tell individuals who and what you belong to. So just like when you see all of those pride flags, they belong to this, mm, I'll say community. They belong to this community, this overarching LBGTQ plus community. So I think it's important also just to look at like, um, am I idol worshiping? With all of these symbols, because we fall very quickly into that, man. It's kind of like our Achilles heel as original people. You put a you put a spirit in front of us, we want to worship it. We just think all spirits should be worshiped and given offerings. You put a symbol in front of it, we want to fight and die for the symbol. You know, like just a color. We fight and die behind colors. Your red rag or your blue rag, that's, or your yellow and black rag. Those are all idols. You know what I mean? Whereas they should represent a particular silic or a particular culture, and most importantly, they should they should reflect and symbolize a deity. Every national flag should have a reference to the deity that it serves. If not, then it's idol. It's an idol that you're bowing in front of. So, just wanted to share that.
Peace. Give thanks for that, Chief. Um, I was wondering while you're speaking, like, okay, so would the crucifix be idol? Um, but that linked to my original thought about, what would Yah's flag be um, on us, like, and I was like how the wind moves through the flag came to mind, and it reminded me of if we're moving in the spirit of Yah, like with His inspiration, then we're the flags, basically. And I just wanted to add that point.
It's a great point. Um, the crucifix is absolutely an idol. It's absolutely an idol. It's foolish to wear that thing around your neck. You know, you could imagine. Look at it like this: we have a label that's being resuscitated by Snoop Dogg, Death Row Records. Death Row Records logo was an image of a man in an electric chair. And if you look at the fate of what happened with most of the artists who were on death row, it lets you see what they were manifesting and actualizing: jail and death, right? So if we were to fast forward the crucifixion or the murdering of uh, Yahushua Hamashiach, then we would be seeing either a syringe, he'd be dying by lethal injection, or if we wanted to use the electric chair, it'd be electric chair, right? Maybe even a noose, maybe even a noose. So imagine if everybody was walking around right now with electric chairs around their neck and had electric chairs hanging in their church, or syringes, or uh, 18 karat gold nooses around their neck to signify the death of their savior. You see how insane that sounds? So that's what your cross is around your neck, and it's just that idiotic to be walking around with a cross around your neck. That's idol worship, you know. So that's something that we as original people, we as original Israelites would never ever do, you know.
For sure, for sure. When you said that, Chief, it made me think of excuse me, not just death row and the in that piece, but the fact that literally you have to think of the melanin rich men that died by electric chair, especially unjustly or on a trumped up charge, historically, because yeah, that did happen. You go into the electric chair for something you didn't even do, or going to the gallows for something you didn't do, you know, just being incarcerated just for being melanin rich, and dying because melanin rich, or because somebody lied on you, saying they, got, sexually assaulted by you, and none of that happened, So you have to think about that when you look at also the electric chair and death row, Then when you talked about the Jesus, not the Jesus piece, not my gold Jesus piece,
Yeah, the
not my
Jesus
chain,
piece. The Jesus piece gotta go.
but yeah, because also, yeah, banging on, with your flag, in your back pocket, and things like that, Also, I know this is one thing I did. You could probably relate because Chief, you was in it, like when Rough Riders came out, I had my Rough Riders bandana. Oh man, I used to wear it, I I used to wear just like how, DMX and y'all used to wear them, I'm talking about. And then,
Yeah,
but I ain't never, was in the, bike club, but hey, I was rapping, it's like, yeah,
yeah. I mean,
double R.
it was a worldwide type of phenomenon. I mean, even our grandmothers and our aunties used to cook food with the bandanas on. But even with that, for us, it represented something so much different. I was with Rough Riders when we were still putting sheetrock up in the studio. When we didn't have any audio equipment. You know what I mean? And we was just trying to put it together, just put the idea of Rough Rider as a label together. So by the time we started having merchandise, for me and for a lot of the other brothers who were, a part of the original crew, it wasn't even about like this looks cool per se. It was just like, yo, because it's not like now. Like now, you could go online and get your own T-shirt. It's easy. But back then, it was a different type of experience. So it was like, yo, we got T-shirts, we got bandanas, and dudes was wearing like, it was a different thing because it signified like we did something that people are appreciating. For me, I always my bandana always went one place over my Timbs because when you ride motorcycles, your left foot will always get scuffed up by your gear shifter. So if you got on a new pair of Tim's Constructs, you don't want your Constructs to get all scuffed up by the gear shift. So you take a bandana, you wrap it around the front of your shoe. That's what my bandanas was for. You know what I mean? But it was still a pride because it was like, wow, we stuck to it and we made something and we do. I mean, even at the time, we didn't know it was going to be as big as it was. You know what I mean? But still, but again, it's what it symbolizes. You know, for some of us, it symbolized like, yo, we did something cool that people appreciate. For others, it might have symbolized like, yo, if I'm with Rough Riders, you ain't gonna put your hands on me. Whatever, I don't know. You know, and that's the important thing too with a flag. With a flag, like there has to be a collective understanding of what these things mean. Like even if you put an American flag in front of me, what is the symbology of the colors? Why are flags rectangular and not square? If you put those yellow fringes on the flag and it becomes, an admiral flag, why is it admirable? Like admiral, excuse me. You know, but these things, like if I don't understand these things, then it becomes superstitious idol worship, you know.
Yeah, peace. That made me think of the concept of rebranding. Like I start with one, original intent. I created one thing and I put all of my energy or a particular type of energy into what that symbol means. And then a couple of years later, I could just switch up what you think it means, but that it's like the original intent is still there. So I can create something really sinister and then I could come back and try to clean up my image later. But the original intent is still there. Or I could just lie to someone and tell them, oh, that just means this. But in actuality, it means something else. And like you said, it's like, why does it mean that? Or why should I see it as that? You know, even with the Rough Riders piece, like how you were saying, if I use this as my flag, or if I wear this flag, no one's gonna put their hands on me. People typically try to emulate like things that are ferocious or things that are dangerous because they want to emulate that same type of energy. And you've spoken to the symbology of certain like superheroes, like um, they're speaking to these things like they have a certain type of supremacy, like a wolfman or a Spider-Man or any type of animal infused with humanity, and you try to use that as your banner or that as your flag to say, oh, we represent the tribe of the spider or the tribe of the wolf. You're trying to take on something as opposed to bring something out of you. So you're planting a flag, but it's not necessarily your own flag. You took the energy of something else and Like you're putting it above what you already bring, and you're using it to represent you. Like you're saying, this thing is stronger than us, and this is what we're striving to be, as opposed to like Sister Shamanique was saying, like you don't have no flag in terms of the imagery, but what you represent yourself is, it speaks for you. Yeah, so I just wanted to add
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say that um, having that image placed in front of somebody, almost in a sense, I would say, gives one some type of structure, at least going back to even like the Jesus piece, or going back to something that somebody can aspire to. Now, I also would say though that people get stuck of not putting in their own work, as far as, okay, at least if I'm underneath this flag, it says that I'm a winner, or it says that I'm this or I'm that, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm not really involved with that because I really didn't contribute to that. So it's no different than, I would say, one going to a game and cheering on their team and saying that we won the championship, we are winners, or we beat this team, right? And but not really going through the burn of two a days, or not really going through the burn of trying to get up and balance work and life and all of this other kind of things of what it takes to go through to be a winner. But as long as I can put the jersey on, or as long as I can put the color on, at least somebody would say that I'm a part of that, which really almost speaks to a home base and a rootage that one has came from, of knowing really what a family is, but and maybe not being a part of that. So then wanting to be a part of a family, wanting to be part of something greater than themselves, where they can look to Rough Riders, or they can look to a Death Row Records, or they can look to something and say, oh, at least, that's cool. They get women, they get this, they get that. I want to be a part of that. Not knowing what they actually went through in order to resurrect that, or whatever the case may be, or what comes with that, or how short term somebody's going to live when they say that they're a part of a death row, or anything of that nature. But immediate gratification, immediate, relieving me of some tension and some stress that maybe I just couldn't find my group, or I just couldn't fit in over here. And this is what I really always felt like I belonged to, or whatever the case may be, and start going to that. So I guess on one hand, I see the benefits of it from at least giving somebody some structural framework, but then it becomes detrimental when one stays stuck there, and doesn't want to actually subscribe to or go beyond what has been placed in front of them, in a sense, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Peace,
Already.
everybody.
Go ahead, and I.
Thank you. Brother Zach, what you just shared made me think about like my high school experience. I went to a high school, like an all girls high school. And even to date, a lot of people still claim that like Dove love representation and are like proud of it and subscribe to it. But I was never one to be like that, especially with the school, because I knew how the people were and like what I guess some of the affiliations that came with their Dove Love. Um, but when I was speaking about, I think it was Sister Shamanique mentioned the cross, the Jesus piece. I was one of those people that wore a cross around my neck, like religiously all the time, because I thought like, okay, this is what's going to keep me from, I don't know, doing certain things I shouldn't do. But the reality of it is, if I want to do it, I'm gonna do it, whether I'm wearing this or not. I can take it off, and if that mattered that much, that it was just around my neck when I wanted to do something I shouldn't. But I guess it just goes back to what I'm wearing. What does it really mean to me on the inside, even though I have it on, um, and I'm representing it. but am I really representing it by my actions and behaviors? So I guess coming full circle, like wanting to be a part of something, but not knowing what it is or what it was. Um, I guess like now I have that with I knew because like seeing how the people are, it goes along, it matches everything that's being spoken or taught or shown. It's not contradicting in any kind of way. So everything like stays in alignment.
Peace, everyone. How is everyone doing? Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. When I think about like the planning of a flag, what came to mind immediately is like the double-mindedness that some of us may be struggling with, where we're like undecided, like we have one foot in and one foot out type of thing, and maybe we haven't committed ourselves to like um, one man or our head or one culture or being truly allegiance to that. And it makes me think about the recent podcast that Chief did on the one, and it talked about like having one teacher, one method, one system. And um, I think sometimes like we are, we may be like, if we like really look, deep inside of our thoughts, that we may have thoughts that are still like tethered to Babylonian, type of thinking, because Babylon is in the mind. So I just thought about like how some of us may say like we put our stamp down here, and I knew, but you know, um the flag is barely in the ground, anyone can come and just kick it over, it's not really firmly planted in all the way. And so I just think about like how some maybe still don't see the importance of like strength in numbers and unity, and maybe have like a lone wolf type of mentality. And I think about Ujima and collective work and responsibility, where we maintain and we protect like we care about the mental, spiritual, physical, and social health of all the members. It's not just about us and ourselves. And and then when I think about like planting a flag, it's like I do think about like camaraderie and unity, and being a part of a community and being all in. So I just wanted to share that.
Greetings, everyone. Shalom, Manu. Um, I like to add to what Aki Zach said, and it made me think about the first time I ever spoke to Chief. And I remember I told him, I said, "Hey, the symbol you have, can I take it, use it, and make a flag, and I'll put it in my yard?" Right?
Oh my God, I was thinking the
You remember
same
that? You remember that, Chief? I swear to God,
Yo,
this
I
is this.
swear I was thinking the same thing before you even spoke, and I was like, yo, maybe I should tell this story, but I don't want the brother to feel like I'm outing him. This is, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut off, but that's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, but this truly happened. Like this is the first conversation we had, because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, yo, whatever he on, I'm on that. You know what I mean? And this is right after I heard, and I always tell people, and I heard the video when he was charging people like, yo, if you have a leader or Jegna or whatever, and they can't provide these certain necessities for you, you need to go straight to them and you question them hard. And if they can't produce, you don't need to be there, right? And so I was like, yo, that energy right there, that's what I'm on. So, but I didn't realize how foolish I was by even asking for that, right? It was foolish in a sense, like I didn't know what I knew was. I didn't have an idea what I knew was. I hadn't vetted. I knew. I hadn't been through any type of membership or anything. So, like Chief was saying, like, do you know what the flag is? Do you know what it represents? Right? And so it's like, even when you talk about a military, right? When someone is being commissioned to do something, being commissioned to do something, like even when you're becoming an officer in the military, you're only in commission just means you're being entrusted with something. Meaning that you've proven to a point to where now we can entrust you to the next level. So it's like I was unqualified. I'm an unqualified person, but I'm just looking my eyes, but I didn't have the knowledge of what is I knew. How, like I had none of that. So I had to realize, like, now I can sit back as we having this conversation. I'm like, yo, I was so unqualified to even be asking to rock the flag. It was just on some. I was emotionally charged by what he was saying. So I decided to move on that. But I just wanted to say that because Aki Zach was, what he was saying, like, are you of the quality that flag is, and it's like that requires a certain amount of time for both the group, because being commissioned can actually go to a group as well. So are you of the ilk that the flag is actually representing? So now, after being in Nanu for several years, I'm like, yo, I'm still trying to earn my flag. You know what I'm saying? I'm still trying to earn the right and be commissioned to plant my flag. And because that's what we're going for. That's what we're moving towards. And it's because, as Sister Sequoia, Emma Sequoia said, she's like, hey, some people's flags are badly planted. And you can see it, with how things people come in and out of our news. It could feel good in the beginning, but then in the longevity of things, your ground is always soggy, right? That means that you can't really plant anything in it, because it in order to plant a flagpole, you have to go so far down in the ground for it to be stable. So if you always so watery or emotional, or how can I plant something there? Because you ain't solid ground. So I just wanted to share that and add to the bill and give thanks.
Hey, bless the love, family. Hope everyone's great. Yeah, man. One of the things I thought about as we were navigating through the discussion, and a lot of you touched on it, especially the last two inserts, is when you think about certain flags and symbols. There are certain groups that when you fly that symbol, there's an expectation that you would have done or gone through certain things. So when other members see it, like let's say if it's a flag of refuge, for instance, and it ties you back to a certain military right, and there are only certain people who know about that military right, and because they are all a part of that. So anywhere you go in the world, if there's a war happening or anything of the sort, and the wife of one of those militants, I'll just say it that way, the wife or the children of one of those militants know if they knock on that door, there's a code that's expected of the residents of that homestead. Additionally, there are there are certain movements that you would have been expected to be honorable with. I don't leave my children in your care expecting that there may be some type of violation against them. There's an expectation that you receive my family the same way I receive yours, and obviously vice versa. So when we look at flags and the members or those who bear the right to wear those banners on their doors or on the yards of the homestead. Even think of Anu. A chief often said to us, I'm protecting those who are here from those who are coming with either ill intentions, those who cannot get outside of their own way, those who are a danger to themselves and hence a danger to everybody else. It's like when you walk into a Anu compound, you know that everybody there has a certain creed with regards to the way that they view the Almighty, the way that they see that they should interact as far as representations of the Almighty, and also representations of either the men or the women that they are within I won't say their own right, but based on their qualifications, based on rank that's been given to them, and acknowledgement by the community. So that's also another factor. When many people move with blind loyalty with the flag, you see it a lot in politics where they pretty much sum you up to colors. You in the United States, you guys use red and blue, and I guess some of the other colors for different subgroups. And then in the Bahamas, we use predominantly gold and red. And there was a time throughout the Caribbean and also other parts of the world, but I'll just speak to the Caribbean because I can relate here, where neighborhoods or areas were deemed to be certain colors, and there were a lot of political uprisings as a result of that. There not too long ago in not so distant past in Haiti, a symbol or flag, if you can call it that, would be sunglasses, where they knew that people who had sunglasses on and moved with a pod or a crew of maybe three or more, they represented or what someone would consider a Tyrrhenian leadership. So people stood back, So nowadays we don't see as much of the affiliations as you know the representations what people should be carrying as flags. But there was a time when it was an honor to carry a flag, but people actually were willing to die for it, which is something that Akilo, you were touching on earlier, like from that era. But now that with Anu, we know that if I see a flag in front of Brother Hamza's house now, I know that Hamza would have been qualified to carry it because the Jagna has approved it. And we respect our Jagna. We follow our Jagna. Our Jagna pours into us. Whereas other members, we may, like Hamza. I remember Hamza said, I'm gonna start a new chapter and blah 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 blah. And I remember when he pulled right back on it. He's like, yeah, you right, you right, you right. So that there's a certain thing that all of us are looking for, and unfortunately, until we find it, we will find ourselves wearing symbols blindly, like whether it be crosses or, the list goes on and on. But I put myself back on me, but I just thought it was pretty interesting that you said that most people don't think about, when you put on a symbol, like over here, growing up, when people wore certain symbols, if they couldn't defend it, it'll be taken off of you. You know what I mean? So it's pretty interesting on this conversation now. I give thanks.
That was a powerful piece that you ended with, Abba. You wearing a certain symbol, and if you can't defend it, which of course defending it means justify and define it, it's taken off of you. I definitely grew up in the same sort of era, and not just the era of, and not just in terms of like a particular symbol, but even a particular a way of being you had to be able to defend. I remember times being on the basketball court as a young man and having, I used to wear gold as a youth. I remember having big gold chain, gold watch, gold bracelet, and to be able to go through certain areas and not have your chain snatched, you know, it made its own statement, or to be in high school and to have an expensive kind of coat and put your coat in your locker. If you were a guy who could put your coat in your locker, it said something. Like, nah, ain't nobody gonna steal my car out of my locker. No one's gonna try to snatch my chain. And that started to help to define the pecking order. It's the you figure out who the apex predators are and who's able to hold their own against apex predators, or who may be an apex predator themselves. So I think that's a very key piece. And I guess it may be the older man in me, but sometimes I really wish for those days to come back. When they were real for real wolves out here, because I grew up in a time of wolves, and those wolves let you really know what you are. If you tried to posture yourself as something you weren't, you would immediately get challenged on that. And that's something that I think, going to what Aki Hamza had spoke about with the flag, I still move with that exact same mentality, except it's more inward. I direct it inward. So what that means is that a lot of people come along all the time. Oh, Chief, I want to do this. What I knew, Chief, I want to do da 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 da. And I say, okay, well, come on, come through, get to know us, get to learn us first, because as a man, loyalty is one of the most important things to me, as all men. Like, all men move by loyalty. It's very important to us, you know. And I would say even more important than it is for women. It's something that is very germane to the healthy development of a man and how he defines his world, whether it be corporate, whether it be political or social. It's through his reciprocal exchanges of loyalty. And loyalty begins with a faithfulness, and it begins with understanding ethical principles. And it doesn't spring from emotion. It springs from um, a mutual trust. Like I said, a reciprocity, and it helps to decide to determine what decisions a person will make, what actions a person will make, even as things are changing, and most importantly, how one will defend the character and the reputation of people who they have relationships with. And the fact that if you're loyal, you won't exploit people's trust or misuse their loyalty, right? So for me, when people come in and say, "Oh, I want to get down what I know, I want to this," I want to prove to you first my loyalty to you before you offer me yours out of emotion. I would rather you offer me your loyalty out of reciprocity because I've offered it to you, and and you will understand first that I'm not going to participate in any character assassinations, despite any kind of pressure that may come or anything like that. There's no innuendos. I won't even question the integrity of your friendship really until we can have some kind of direct communication. So it's a vow that we sort of take that begins to shape sensible action on our part, on both of our parts, whether that be getting a flag or a bandana, you know what I mean, or whatever the symbol is. For some of us, it's even tattoos, but that's a different kind of thing. But loyalty is not something that kind of just bobs and goes all over the place. When your feelings are hurt, and a lot of times people need to understand, and I knew it's a development type of experience. So you may choose to have your feelings hurt, you may choose hurt feelings when that development or that correction comes. And that will be a test of your loyalty. In the same instance, there may be times you say or do something that I feel are a betrayal of what I have poured into you, of what I've maybe revealed to you. And then my loyalty gets an opportunity to be trusted. And we all need to go through that process to see who's really loyal. And then we can start saying, okay, yeah, I have earned the right to walk under this because I've shown loyalty to those others who because again, that flag, it speaks about identity. I'll give you a great example. Again, talking about the Rough Riders thing. A lot of people don't know that we started Rough Riders in 1988. You know what I mean? Some of you weren't even born yet when we started Rough Riders. And it wasn't until 1998, it was literally 10 years before we really, really popped. And that was when 1998 is when um, we released Get At Me Dog. Get At Me Dog was a black and white video we did in the tunnel and everything. And that was like when DMX really like it just was like he was known, he was getting known because he was doing features. He did feature with LL Cool J, he did another one with the Locks. He was getting these features here and there. But that was the song that it was like boom. Now the world knew who DMX was. That was 10 years. And I can promise you there were so many people who came and went in between that time, including myself, because I had fallen back and came back, fallen back. It's just that the owners of Rough Rider, we're like family. I know them outside of the music. So it was always like, might see me at a funeral or a barbecue. Was like, yo, come through. And then next thing I'm back and I'm working again. You know what I mean? But there were a lot of people who came and went who were excited for the moment because we building something, and then there was a certain hmm, there was a certain street element that also permeated the environment that we established at that time with Rough Riders. So there were people who found that exciting, to be around certain types of people and whatnot like that. And then we were also distributed by Interscope Records. So because we were distributed by Interscope, we had a relationship with Death Row. Snoop used to always hang out at the studio and hang out with us back then. So there was this, oh man, Snoop, I heard Snoop came through and this and that. So people were excited about those things, but it took 10 years before something actually popped off. And in that 10 years, people's loyalty was tested. These are brothers that I am still cool. We haven't released anything. The last Rough Riders release was in 2010, and that was a compilation of old stuff. But these are brothers that I'm still cool with to this day. You know, can still sit down, chat, break bread with, have dinner. Hey, what's up? How's your grandma? How's Nana? How's your you know, it's still love because of that decade of loyalty testing. You know, so I just wanted to throw that out there. You know, as people come and go, and even in I knew how sometimes some people may look and think that I'm moving slow or like, you know, why can't we just do this? Why can't we just jump into that? It takes time to develop that reciprocal relationship. It takes time for you to understand that you can trust me. I'm not going to misuse you. And that you can prove to yourself or even show me, well, I'm not going to misuse you either. You know, that's not something that happens through the quickness and the swiftness of emotion. So just wanted to share that.
That makes me even think about um, like when people start rooting for a team because maybe that team is hot at that particular time, or maybe because their favorite player is on a team, but really over the long period of time when maybe that team is not winning, or maybe their favorite player is not on that team, or maybe the things are not going the way that they feel like they should go, now they become a fair weather fan. They become a fair weather to whatever it is that they say that they are connected to. And now all of a sudden, what's that? That was that old thing in Class Act when she's like, "Yo, Davita, I thought you was gonna play with my frog. Yeah, your frog ain't hopping in my direction." Now all of a sudden, something else is hot. Something else has your attention. Or going back to even the idol worshiping is now there's a shinier object that may have one's attention, as opposed to saying, what have I committed myself to? What have I invested myself in? And ultimately, am I really submitting myself to what has been put in front of me, that therefore now people see me as a living vessel of the flag, as opposed to even going back to before what was spoken about of war and defending oneself, and one really not having the culture inculcated inside of one for protection. But now I'm going to put on a flag, or I'm going to put on the shirt. Like I always said when I was younger, it gotta be in you and not on.
Yeah, like you always say. That's right, brother. Hmm.
Been saying that since I was 5 years old. Like Chief would say though, it's like it gotta be in you and not on you. And but so many, it's very easy to put the shirt on because now, in a sense, it gives one a form of protection. Like in the movie, I don't know if you've ever seen in South Central, when one of them was in jail and somebody was about to check him, and then even on drugs and all of this, he put his two fingers up and was like, "Deuce, here," and shaking and all of this other kind of stuff. And because somebody thought that he was connected to a group, they backed away, right? So now, because somebody can put something on like a shirt, they feel like you're connected to a group. Maybe it will protect you from a sense. Or even going to what Chief had broke down the other day on the words, and when Buddha was like, "Give me the meaning of words." How many people now can sport a flag just in the sense of a word, where somebody will say something and then all of a sudden they freeze when they start to say, I'm gonna put a hex on you, or I'm gonna do some voodoo on you? Are you so rooted in your own culture that, you know what, I know the meaning of these words and I'm not afraid of these words? Or now all of a sudden one starts to run and say, now I'm gonna put on this cross, or I'm gonna put on these things, or all these certain incantations that one likes to use to try to maybe boost their own morale of trying to sport a verbal flag, as opposed to seeing what these things actually mean and putting it inside of them, so that therefore now it's not a one moving in fear, or one trying to plant a flag. I think somebody said earlier, soft sand or quicksand or whatever the case may be, when somebody comes over and starts poking at it and you didn't plant that in anything. It's not well rooted in good communication or trust, or honor or anything of those natures. It's just rooted in, I thought it was cool at the time. I got up for it. I invested in it, but now I see it wasn't moving as fast as I thought it would, like, or he ain't sharing as what I thought he would, or what, it's all right. It was all right. Nah, nah. Did you really give your all to it? Did you really pour in and submit yourself to it so that you became a living vessel of and a flag of yourself, or were you just passing through to put the shirt on and it was cool while it was winning for the moment, and now you're moving on to do something else? So yeah,
Yeah,
Hey, blessing up. Sorry, my bad.
it's okay, Abba. You can go.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Something I just wanted to also insert is the defiance aspect. When you think about what we represent as Anu, we're below that 1%, and internally we understand what our Bennu bird means and the formula of which it's displayed. But those who are not Nanu, you know, they would not have, or even been exposed to the Anu thought, they would not have read the Anu foundations to understand the elements of which it actually represents and speaks to. But you also think of that defiance element of it. It's a defiance against Babylon. It's a reclamation rather of what it is that we should be doing as those who have that celestial ember in us. And then you think about those times when, yeah, I'll just, speak to also a Tyrannian ruler. Someone usurps the actual king or kills them and their children are banished or something like that, which is us. And we're imprisoned or whatever those elements may be, or those scenarios may be. The those who are in support of the original house for that king, they may put up a flag in defiance against the one that rules now, when they just say, I'm willing to die for this. It doesn't matter if your soldiers come and knock on my door and wanna you know slaughter me in front of the community. Bitch is not my community. Then you hear them shouting out things like, "You are all lost and guided." You speak, and I think Boaki's speaking about the words. It says, people would speak the words of defilements, against you and your Lord and the lands that have been prepared for you. So when you think about those elements, there's also a level of defiance against the direction that people are attempting to take you, or that in some cases have taken you down already. Like, hold on. The hoodwink's off now, man. I was moving blindly now. I got some sense now. I understand what those rays mean now. I'm learning, rather. I'm learning what those rays mean. I'm learning what it is for that bird to safely carry the egg in its mouth. So just thinking about that element also, like there is supposed to be a level of resistance when you also bear these flags. Like, nah, like when Chief was talking about, being able to defend something. I'm gonna resist you. You know, I'm qualified to hold it down now. Or like, people could walk on certain blocks. Like, who just do this? You know what I mean? And I can resist you. I can hold my own. You want to go in it? You know what I mean? What Chief say about Hamza? Pull up there, pull up. You know what I'm saying? I can't even say it properly because that ain't really me. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. So
No, that
just
was
thinking.
good.
Yeah, yeah, man. But that resistance element, man. We have to also look at what we stand for. In the solutions book, it reminds us, and Chief states to us. And the crazy thing about it is, I never thought about it until he presented it to me, and to us by and large who hold the text. If one does not choose a culture will be chosen for you. So everything down to the mixed threads that we wear is also an element of us flying somebody else's flag. Everything down to someone telling us that, um, as a woman at a certain age or a man at a certain age, you're going to be prone to certain sicknesses, is also an element of a flag that someone else is putting under you, which is called the Westminster. So I'll put myself back on mute for now, but it goes pretty deep when you start talking about where our allegiances have actually been placed. Why are we so conformed to certain things? You know what I mean?
Peace. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Apocruz, because I was just thinking about the illusion of planting a flag. And what came to mind was independence. Like all these, for example, in the Caribbean, you'll see that a lot of the countries are independent now. We gain independence, but I was watching a video of when Jamaica gained independence, and they literally just rolled down one flag and raised up another. So there was no action taken that specified that they were free. It was just an illusion. So it kind of relates to what Aki Zach Lat was saying about if it is in you or on you.
Peace, greetings, everyone. I'll join. Um, I wanted to pull from some of what Abba Cruz just said and also what was shared earlier. As I was listening to the conversation, planting a flag is also marking territory. Whenever we see on the boob tube, when something is quote unquote conquered, you plant the flag, you plant your flag. And so with that territory, then it's like, okay, we have to define the boundaries and make them known. And so when we talk about choosing culture, or if not choosing a culture, one will be chosen for you. How many times do we actually choose the culture that is death? And because we're told this is what you're supposed to do. And so when we do that, we are helping to fortify the boundaries that someone else set, and then even establishing loyalty and getting other people to be loyal to that territory and those boundaries and whatever is behind, what that flag stands for. And we do that in multiple ways, and like the actions that we take, the food, as it was brought up, the dress, where we work, all of that is just fortifying boundaries and territory for someone else. And so then I was thinking, how long does that happen before your own potential to plant your flag, and also that being like the light, right? If we're celestial embers, like how long do you go before that light is almost extinguished, to where you can't necessarily find your way out from behind enemy lines, if you will. And then find yourself, and be in a place that is more attuned and akin to what and who you are, right? And what we are supposed to be as children of Yah and the people of Yah. Even thinking about the battle piece of a flag, can I put my banner next to someone who is, whose flag is like battle worn because they've made the decision to not be, to have their space away and set their space away from Babylon? Am I worthy enough to even plant my flag next to someone like that, or come under their banner? As a woman, we're supposed to uphold the banner of the household that we're in and be a proper representation. So how corrupted, are we, or how much do we have to scrub away before we can, come back into a more sane place, or into territory that is more friendly, and in tune with who and what we should be. Give thanks.
I also like to add to that, to what you were saying, Sister Deidre, because the flags are coverings, right? Because as much as they have an ability to distinguish someone, but they also protect people, right? It's like why a lot of young kids join gangs, right? Because they're not joining it because it looks a lot of times cool, which at times that is the thing, but a lot of times it's because maybe they're gonna get bullied when they run around the corner, right? But they know if they put this flag in this pocket and join an allegiance with these other people, they're protected, right? So a lot of people, that's also a thing that people understand too. And and why and why I bring this up is because if I've put, and like Chief said, if he's put so much work into what he's doing, that means that in order to for this flag to be in your yard, that means that you're also sharing a part of what he's built. Like, have you like smoothed yourself out to the point that where you can represent this flag the way the original intent was? Because these flags also have trust within them, right? You always hear the Moorish community, they speak about, yo, fly the flag because, you flying this flag, there's a trust this, trust that, they're talking about these old agreements that had been made between, different lands, as what you were referring to, Sister Deidre. And that's another thing I think people don't take that serious as well, is that when the flag is being created, that flag is being created because it's trust, just it, like Chief said earlier, like just that alone sometimes can get you a gate pass, right? That can get you an entry into certain spaces that maybe your own face card couldn't. But by you connecting to this thing, now you can fly freely. And like Chief said, ain't nobody gonna touch him, right? He got the gold chain on, right? Because they understand that what he's flying, or the flag he's toting, even if that's just sheer energy, it's a protection. So it's like Chief says all the time, it's like, yo, when people leave I knew, they don't do better. Why? It's because they don't realize, like, even just being a part of I knew, there's a certain inheritance just being a part, because you're trying to strive back towards your rightful position. And so just energetically it's bringing you back up. And so when you move from under that covering and you're having to struggle and fight these things by yourself, and you're going through all of these transitions alone, then you realize, like, that's the power of community, that's the power of the flag, that's the power of harmony, right? And I just want to share that.
Greetings. I wanted to kind of build on what you guys are talking about, what Chief was saying. I kind of think one of the major important things when it comes to planting your flag is really understanding the flag that you're trying to plant. Because like Chief was saying, there's so many different flags now. Like everything has a flag, where, taking flags for face value would never allow you to gain that. Because like how, like you're just saying, get into certain rooms or get into certain spaces, you may get into the space, but it doesn't mean you will be there for long, or you'll be able to actually receive the benefits in that space, because you don't truly understand what type of flag you're falling under, or what type of space you're really in, right? So one thing for me, like, that I'm trying to do right now is fully understand what Anu is and the full ins and outs of it, so that when I am standing firm on those ways, I actually know what I'm talking about, and I actually I'm fully like Chief was speaking about in one of his videos, I'm cashing in my check, right? I'm fully invested, and I'm gaining what I can and what I can't. Um and I feel like that's one of the major things to look at. And I want to share that.
Peace.
Hey, best of love, best of love. As I, Akoti Deidre and Aki Hamza was speaking, and even you just now, Brother Raheem, one of the things that I visioned when you all were talking about protection and like territory was, the first vision I had was that of the boundaries of a fence around a yard, like in a neighborhood. And you know the neighborhood was a certain way until this one particular neighbor moved in, and he or she completely, normally it's a he, like they throw the whole element off. They got the music playing, they got a live band playing, they always got parties going on in what used to be a fairly quiet neighborhood. The the boundary that they have around the fence prohibits anybody from really doing or saying anything once they're not breaking the law. Now, what I thought about even after that, as an extent, was, when you cross even just a so-called imaginary line, and you cross one country's border into the next. Or when you think about the depiction of, like, the western era, cowboys and Indians kind of thing, when you entered a certain town that flew a certain flag, which was the flag of that town, you had to check your firearms, and like there's a sign of peace here. Like there certain things are not allowed here. And as you would go through the scene, you'll find that there's probably a sheriff or a mayor or whoever who represents a certain creed that the outlaws can't really manage. And no matter what, this creed comes out on top. So like when Raheem was speaking about learning what Anu is, and when we're speaking about now the flag, you can be sure that as you learn the journey of what it is to be an Anu man, you will find that as you learn what that flag would mean or should mean to you, that you're gaining an understanding of what it is to be a representation of the Almighty here on earth and the will of the Almighty here on earth as it oozes out of you. You learning what it is to understand what it is to be a part of the original bloodline and the intention of the human being walking this earth plane, what it is to actually be fortified in community, what it is to actually take the responsibilities of community. The when your name is called out on a roll, you know that you would have put the work in, and responsibilities are given to you not based on what it is that you have the strength of, but the potentials that you have that you don't even see within yourself. And as you're developing, those are just scratching the surface of what it is. When you hear all of us speaking here who are Anu men, it's because we're also developing. A question was asked, and I'm not going to go too far into like some of our internal conversation, but a question was asked to Aki Zach. Was did he always have this confidence? And I'll do my Zach voice. Heck no. It took so long, right? But it's a
That was
development.
pretty good. That's
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and even Master Menelik, where think about how soft spoken he is. When we started doing the Shimas, he and I'd be looking off into the into the skies. I could be like, "What's he looking at?" But now he leads the ciphers and so on. So there's a development. One thing you are sure is that there will be a development, and as just I mention Aki Hamza a lot because I'm inspired by the brother. One of the things that he said, and he's a brother of little words, but when he speaks, he drops some weight on you. He reminded us of something, and it sounded just like Chief, man. He's like, when you go into the bushes or living in the wilderness in the forest, you know, some people are intimidated by the wildlife, the bears and those kind of things. But the you don't want to posture yourself as somebody who should be there. You want to know that you should be there. You want to have the tools and equip your mind with what it takes to actually survive there. And that's what I knew is going to teach you how to do, brother. You know what I mean? So I'll put myself back on mute, but certainly it'll be a privilege to fly the flag, and it'll be a privilege to watch you develop with it, bro.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
so
thank
this
you.
one,
you know, um, there's another piece to that that I think is important. Everything that everyone is saying is really beautiful. You know, and I take it back to the loyalty piece because that's what establishes and facilitates this sort of conversation where people can feel open and safe enough to kind of express what they're looking for in loyalty. And it makes me think about the Bushido code. I think one of the things that I may have shared, I don't know, I think I did though, but when I first started really coming into developing codes and ethics for myself, uh, I really just functioned off of the Bushido samurai code, and it was literally a piece of paper that was given to me by a sister. She had kind of just cut it out, and I still have it somewhere. And she said, "Yeah," she said, "I don't know. I came across this, and it looks like something that would mean something to you." and she gave it to me, and it just was a short set of codes and ideas, just like just some edicts. And I said, okay, well, this is all I have to work with, so this is it. Sometimes you start with very small things, but one of the things about the Bushido code, as it pertains to loyalty, is that it's something that is really stressed to the point of what we call feel piety, which is really the piety or the trust of the loyalty and love that exists between almost like parent and child. And that code of honor was really necessary because the samurai was bound, by duty and by ethic to die for their lord, you know, if there was a battle that was on. And they were not allowed by their own word to surrender or to flee or run from the battle. It's like we gonna get it here, and this is it. Wherever it goes. But even if my head is chopped off, I'm gonna still try to take somebody out with my last swing. And that connection was never shed, right? So that's always something that meant a lot to me. And then that was also pushed into the practices of Aikido. In Aikido, loyalty is something that they say should be applied to one's daily life. And you should always be faithful in fulfilling anything you have to do at work, anything you have to do in school as well. That level of filial piety still has to go through there, and then that was pushed into Taekwondo as well, where there was like a courage of no retreat when you're fighting for your country. Going back to the self discipline and the devotion that exists underneath a flag, right? Um, but in understanding these different codes and like really exploring the idea of um, loyalty, also brought me into a lot of like Confucius uh, teaching. So I used to study Confucius a lot and take line by line of how Confucius displayed and taught virtues that should exist within the social order, and how we should be obedient to our parents, and how world peace is important and how we can establish that. And one of the characters that used to always be prevalent in that study was the character of Zong, which is a Chinese character, and Zong means the middle, but it also means loyalty. And when you break down Zong, or sometimes it's pronounced Chung, but it's like Zong. When you break down Zong, the way you draw it is that there's a symbol that's on the top, and then there's a line that comes down, which is like the second symbol. And the symbol that's on the top represents the center, or it represents being in the middle of something. And the symbol that's beneath it, or the line that's beneath it, could represent either the heart or it can represent the mind. So the science there, or how one could interpret it, is that in order for one to truly be loyal, there has to be this steadfastness and this unmoving spirit from the center. You can't move from the center. And the center is tied to one's heart or one's mind. It's similar to like what you've heard me say in relationships. Like, a man should learn a woman's mind as she learns his heart. And in doing that, if that's truly something that occurs, then they become this force that doesn't swerve from the center. They become like the character Zong or the character Chung. And this is not something that is an advocacy for blind obedience. Like you have to learn the heart, you have to learn the mind to even understand what a center is. And that's something that was always spoke about in terms of leadership, where a leader must possess what Confucius called Jin, or sometimes they say Ren, but it's Jin. And Jin is the ability that the leader has to display a certain moral order, and the consistency of not swerving from that moral order not running from the battlefield, not abandoning people and things like that. That's what would let the people know that that particular leader received what they called the mandate of heaven. Like, oh, okay, it was truly deposited inside of this person, because we can see by the way they are that now our allegiance to this leader is not blind, but our allegiance is based on zong, or it's based on the heart and the mind. The leader has opened up their heart, the leader has opened up their mind, and that's how we know that they have received the mandate from heaven. They've really been called to leadership and not have just kind of taken that on. So it's just something that I think about. And for me, again, when you talk about planting flags and whatnot, again, it binds people together, because loyalty is a unifier if we're all loyal to the same thing, but we're bound into that middle position through the collectiveness of our heart and mind.
So that makes me even think of the piece of being liberated, and the difference of liberation and freedom. And when one can just put on a shirt and maybe feel liberated, um, that they can sport a certain color, or that they can represent a certain group or affiliation, and maybe they weren't able to do it at a particular time, and now that they're able to, whereas freedom only exists between one's ears, right? So now, knowing that we are bound to one another, knowing that we are bound to a certain mission, comes from a stream of cognition that ultimately would connect us, saying that I have gone through the challenges, I have gone through, you know, the some of the ups and the downs, and this blood, sweat, and tears, to let now we are on the same wavelength. We are on the same trajectory, to say that I have earned my place here, as opposed to just being liberated, to say that I can be here, but ultimately I have something to say. I belong here, in a sense. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that.
Peace, peace. When so give thanks for the whole conversation. As I've been listening, it makes me think of when it comes to planting your flag. First, it makes me think of are you planting your flag with your mission already in your mind of where you're moving and what you're aiming towards? And then secondly, it also in my mind I kind of compare planting your flag, starting a business, an enterprise, like starting a business. Um, they say starting a business, the first 10 years I believe could be like a babysitting process. And then when it comes to putting that out there, whether to your social group or commercially to people you don't even know, um it makes me think, you know, do you do people know what they're representing when they put your flag on? Are you putting that at the forefront? You pretty much it makes me think, how would I say this? That it's like gangs do a lot of times where they say I'm gonna pull your G card or check your G card. Um they're always checking the people in their organization, seeing what they're about, and if they're legit with them. So it makes me think of that when it comes to planting your flag. Are you doing those checks within your organization? So that's all I wanted to share. But give thanks for the build.
Yeah. Uh, to your point, Aki, is there too, in terms of planting your flag, it also makes me think of going out on a campaign. You may not necessarily have your flag in the ground, but you're carrying it, like Akilo said, as like a banner. So you're walking with it, and people can see you coming. And once they see your flag, they know what you're about. But you're also taking that flag with you to say, no matter where I go, this is what I represent. And whenever I stop, this flag is getting planted there to say this is our camp. And nothing changed with the location, but it's in me. You know what I mean? And when Chief was speaking about the Bushido Code, it made me think of the video series that you did a few years ago, Honor, Character, and Warrior Code. And you broke down honor, and you broke down integrity, and you broke down character as like basic things that we should have. You know, um, when it comes to our schooling process, going back to the educational flag, we don't necessarily get those basics. There's so much bureaucracy going on that we tend to forget to deal with the basics of the children. These things should happen in the home first, and then be further developed as people as youth go out. But it tends to be skipped over. Sometimes it's because it's not inside. It's not a flag that's planted inside of the adults. Somewhere along the line, it became less and less important, or even it became an ideal to sometimes put your flag down and raise someone else's flag up just to throw everybody off. And then you can, put your flag back up when you're feeling good. There's another segment which you touched on this phenomenon, letting go. People use certain flags or banners to keep people off them. Like someone may say, "Oh, I'm a Christian. I don't do that." Or I'm a Muslim, I don't do that. But you don't carry yourself that way. So when people see you, they don't necessarily see your flag or your culture or your code. They just see another person, and they probably do what I do because I've seen them indulge in other stuff that the flag that they just, raised up or hoisted up. Like I don't do that. But you just did this other thing the other day. You're not that, but you just want to keep someone off you. Or like Aki Hamza was saying, you just want to scare people off. You want the protection that comes with being under that flag, but you're not necessarily representing it. Like Aki Zaki used to say when he was 5 years old, it's on you, but it's not in you. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
That's a good point. Um it also makes me think of like how Chief was saying, you know, you set boundaries in your life, and boundaries create a standard. So when it comes to planting your own flag, it makes me think, are you setting those boundaries and that example for people coming in to potentially rock that flag like you do? And when they do make it to the point they have your flag and they're repping that, um have they set the stand or the boundaries, and then for the other people looking to come in, that also sets a standard for what you guys do and how you get down as well. So it just made me think of that, but give thanks.
I'm glad you brought that up because it, you know, Genji Chick. It reminded me of well, of a time when I was well, we don't call it getting G check. We call it getting charged. I got charged, right? And I got charged and I was caught, you know, proclaiming to be something that I wasn't. And what we call that is false flagging. So I got caught false flagging. Luckily, luckily, it was from a family member and not no total stranger, you know. Um, so I got a lecture. A lecture I didn't want, but yeah, I got a lecture instead of getting instead of getting really checked. But you know, you do see that. You do see people that proclaim to be things that they aren't, and they false flag, you know. Because they don't stand on that flag, or that flag is not being that hasn't been planted. It's just there to, you know, say that I'm in and I'm not. You know, when I'm really not, you know, or that that standard of that flag, um I don't really, it's not planted inside of my heart, but I'll still profess to be that, you know. So yeah, don't get caught false flagging. You know, don't get caught false flagging. I'm just gonna say it like that, but I'm done.
You you know, man, that's a key thing too, man. I was laughing because I was this
I,
whole session I was, you
I,
know,
oh,
Aki Isaiah has spoke about getting G check, and I'm laughing because I'm like I was trying to say everything that I wanted to say without using the term G check, but he ended up saying anyway. But you know, that's an important part too. That's what I was saying, like when the wolves are out, because the thing about that is that I look at like a lot of young people today, in particular, I'm speaking about entertainers and probably more closer to that, young rappers. And nowadays, it's like for any artist to come out, they have to have some sort of affiliation, you know, and that affiliation is supposed to make them more credible as an artist. And sad to say is that a lot of artists end up expiring as a result of these immediate affiliations that they take on that were really unnecessary to take on. You know, people start to make you believe that if you come into my area and we have a flag already established, that you have to now bow to my flag. And what they call that is checking in. You know, like if I travel to this region or that region, let's say if I want to go film a video or I want to go do a show or whatever, I got to check in with whoever supposedly are the people of power in that particular area. You know, and the sad part, like I said, I see a lot of it with a lot of young artists, a lot of young people. So they begin to claim certain things in order to have the force and the power behind them that those institutions and those organizations may have established, maybe even back in the 70s. You know, back in the 70s and back in the 80s, there's certain institutions that established a certain notoriety. And now I feel in order to be able to move around the globe or the country as I need to move around, I attach myself to that. Or, you know, I remember when I was much younger, certain artists that I would encounter, they would put on, and when I say put on, they would promote and help other artists, up and coming artists, to get record deals or whatever. And I would look at them sometimes and I would say, you know what? Like the person might be trash, like they're a horrible artist, and I'd say, yeah, they're not really moving as a business collective. They're trying to establish a crew to roll with them for protection's sake. You know, so it's sad. I see a lot of these young people who end up going down certain paths, getting gunned down, you know, getting incarcerated because they felt like they needed to claim something that they really weren't. And I mean, we could go even back over 20 years ago and look at Tupac Shakur. That was a perfect example of someone affiliating themselves with an organization that, you know, stood for certain things that he hadn't necessarily gone through himself. Yeah, he was a revolutionary. Yeah, he was a rebel, but he was certainly not a gangster, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, you know. And his concept of being a thug was not what we may look at being a thug as. It wasn't being a necessarily um, a thoughtless criminal, but it was uniting under a certain flag, that thug life. flag, that thug life banner, but affiliating himself with an organization outside of that, I believe, helped to bring about his demise. So I think that false flagging is a tragedy nowadays with young people because they don't feel they have enough strength to stand on their own, or they haven't established enough relationship dynamics where I don't have to be a part of an organization. I have a family, I have a squad, I have a team, and my team can hold down whatever our footprint is by ourselves.
You know, sorry.
No, 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 no. Go ahead, Sister Debbie.
Just real quick, I wanted to add to that. It made me think of the bill from Last Strong when we false flag. It also it leaves that landing strip out, right? Or those the connectors that bring on those other individuals or people or thoughts or anything that is against what you're saying that you're repping, because it's false. So that means that landing strip is still out. And then as I was thinking about what Chief was saying about like even the music industry, or you're building a landing strip for those things to come to you, even though you're saying that's not what you want or that's not where you come from. And so I just wanted to add that on.
Give thanks. Alien. You know what I'm talking about. But yep, go ahead with the cackle. Um, but I know.
I like
Go
to share
ahead,
one more
Brother Hamza.
thing. I like to share one more thing. And Akilo, you know this just as well as I do. I don't think people understand the importance of how you have to position the flag, right? Like the most important right in the military is when we're lifting or raising the flag. Like they'll stop the whole compound or the whole, base will have to stop movement. Like when we're going through this right. And another right that they do is if the flag ever touches the ground, it has to be burned. And the reason it has to be burned is because for a flag to touch the ground, that means the mission or the intention of the flag when it was originally created, it failed or they lost the battle. So that's why it's so important when they go in anywhere in any war zone, there's a group of people who just only take care of the flag. Like their only job in the military, they just take care of the flag. And it's they're showing you that this is how serious we are about our mission. It ain't about the bullets that's being flown. It ain't about the guns and all of the war. It's about this mission that we on. And if this flag touches the ground, we've already failed the mission because we couldn't uphold what it is that the intention of the flag creation was. And I just want to share that.
Bro, you don't have to tell me because I worked at the White House, and I didn't have to do flag detail a bunch of times, but you are right. We will, oh bruh, they will stop traffic, everything. Everything. Look, and because I worked at the White House, I couldn't leave until that until we lowered that flag. And man, I mean, and then you got to play the music, and so you got to play the song before you even let the dang old flag up. Or, if you're raising the flag up, you got to play the music. Then you got to get the artillery, sound the guns. You got to literally stop what you're doing. And everybody be trying to rush to leave base so they would have to be bothered with that. So, yeah, it does happen, when you have to raise that flag and even lowering it down to show that type of respect and things like that. But also the things or the accolades that you put on that flag. Like I know you understand that, Brother Hamza, when like for us, you know, uh when we had our American flag or whatever, we had ribbons on it, and it told every campaign we've been in, you know what I'm saying, and even our honorable distinctions, on our ribbons. Like we actually had, presidential uh accolades, for a bunch of campaigns we done been in, and that symbolized that, and each ribbon took showed was in different colors because of the colors that represented the campaign we've been in. Like you instantly knew what the Vietnam campaign we were in just because of the red and gold, basically, and things like that, or even Iraq or Desert Storm. It usually had the campaign colors of the actual country's flag, or things like that, just like in Vietnam at that time. So I mean, it goes deep in a lot of areas, depending on cultural references, and what people want those cultural things to mean. But I always found that interesting, especially when I was in the military and I um worked at Division HQ, and I would look at basically this museum like place, where it showed all of that. And it always interested me because I'm the history guy. So, and I would look and I'm like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I get that. I get that, but some people don't even think about that, or, going back to, um, carrying a standard of banner, and going on campaign, and actually achieving victory, and going through that, I guess you say, rites of passage, what I'm saying, and then having um that, I would say, symbol put on you as a sign that you were there. You know what I'm saying? And you sort of helped out. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be like what Chief talks about. Bushido, and historically with the Sengoku period, or even the Genpei War. In Japan, you had all these different clans and their mon, or family crest, and you're under that family crest and you're loyal to that family crest, what I'm saying? Even if you know your family has a different name, but you're still loyal to that daimyo, what I'm saying? And you would not shame your family or your clan, and you would die under that mon, what I'm saying, in war, or even even if somebody lied on you and basically um got you hemmed up, for a false charge. You sort of see that in more than one instance in Eastern Asian culture, where like they play the Game of Thrones in a sense, and you get caught with a false charge with the Emperor, and then you end up dying for something you didn't do, but you stand hard on being loyal to the Emperor, or whatever. I've seen that, and I found that interesting. And then you even sort of see that in Yakuza culture or triad culture, where you take the fall for your boss, what I'm saying, and things like that. So give thanks for that. I just wanted to bring that up.
Peace. So I wanted to, as we were talking and building about planting the flag. Peace, everyone. Greetings. As we were talking about
We can't hear you, Sister Maria.
can you hear?
Okay, now we can.
Can you hear me? Oh, you weren't hearing me all this time?
Nope. What'd you say?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I actually thought I was okay. Okay, sorry. Pardon. So no, I said as Chief was sharing about, young people taking on the flag. and taking on flags that don't necessarily align with I'm thinking that doesn't necessarily align with where they want to be or what they want to do, but it's for the benefit. um, I think about the idea of bonds, right? And planting a flag comes with a pledge. It comes with it comes with a pledge. It comes with an oath, right? So it's almost like this unspoken also unspoken bond that's being created when you uphold a particular flag, or you say you do, and things don't necessarily align. And I think about how that could create some levels of self-fulfilling prophecy. I think going back to the example of what was the symbol? Oh my goodness, the Snoop Dogg symbol. Oh my gosh, can somebody remind me what is the name of Death Row, right? And you look at how that was a very vivid example for me, because it can you kind of see how the lives became like self-fulfilling prophecy as a representation of what it is that you're standing behind. And so like when we take on a flag, we have to know completely that we're binding, right? It's almost like we're taking on an unspoken oath to that flag. So that's what I wanted to share. Very important to think about that.
Hey, bless the love, bless the love. You know, something as Aki Hamza and Aki Lo were talking about the flag. I don't know if some of y'all remember Operation Desert Storm in the early 90s when George Bush Sr. was going up against Saddam Hussein. There's always an image that stuck out in my head and it was like big around the news around the time. I was a little jit, but I do remember this, is the soldiers from Iraq, like when they gave up, they held up the American flag. Like to say it wasn't like a surrender. It was like, yeah, we support this, but these guys are just at war. You know what I mean? And like just thinking about how at times we wear certain flags out of cowardliness. And that hit me strongly because, about an hour ago, it came up in this conversation about how some people will put on flags just because of convenience, or they think about protection and so on. you know so just thinking about in real time when the Bahamas was becoming independent, and I thought about Shamanique when she was speaking about the hoisting of one flag up as one goes down. When they dropped the Union Jack, which was the flag from the United Kingdom, and they hoisted the Bahamas flag, as we were going to majority rule in the late 60s, the northern Bahamas, more specifically an island called Abaco, which are where the people from Key West in Florida are from. They are what they call like they're more like fifth and sixth generation merchant families. So these are like white Bahamians, Conky Joes, they call them. They didn't want to come on board with the so-called black nationals and independence. And there are all sorts of stories how they tried to do a coup and so on. Now, in the South, we have the Turks and Caicos Islands. They came on board with independence, but shortly after they went back to the Union Jack. They gave up the independence and went back to the United Kingdom. So also thinking about how there are times when people in your midst are really not on that mission either, and they would hold on to the ideals that you're really pushing against because of cowardliness. And I think about that image in Iraq in 92 or 91, whatever year it was, when Saddam's soldiers, who were supposed to be his tankmen, I think they were, his ride or dies, like they're holding up the enemy's flag, like Bush, Bush, Bush. I remember them shouting Bush, and that's how many people we may be looking to liberate or assist. I'm hearing Chief's words now. Those babies will kill you. You fighting for those babies will kill you. You know what I mean? So it's really important to have that vetting process of who actually holds that flag. So as our military brothers were talking just now, I certainly held on to that just now. Blessings.
Yeah, that with you and Akoti Morea was just speaking about Cruz. Like both of them together sort of reflected what I was thinking about relationships. and forming relationships, and how sometimes some people will get out of one relationship and jump right into another one just to avoid feeling bad about the one they just left. And you can even hear it sometimes with people joining organizations and not knowing what they're about, like we were speaking about earlier. And their common excuse, or common excuse you may hear, is I just wanted to belong to something bigger than myself. So it's not necessarily I'm really down for what it is they say they're down for, or I can really internalize this doctrine and try to, advance it and push it forward. It's more, I don't want to be lonely. I want to be amongst people who seem to think the same way that I think. And those people usually get taken advantage of. We were talking about the lack of G checking as well. And our chief would always say it was the revenge of the nerds at a certain point. And nowadays, because of that era, and a lack of manhood, you don't necessarily have too many um, flags in the conscious community that hold it down or that mean anything really. It's a lot of people just everybody wants to hoist up a flag, but they just want to hoist up a flag to say that this is what I'm doing. I'm doing my own thing. It doesn't necessarily come under a certain type of teaching or a certain type of um, truth that was passed down or handed down from the elders. Everybody just says one catchy thing and then they try to ride on that catchy thing. And the people that they attract are these lonely people, who just want to be a part of something. And you get a lot of people being bamboozled like that. And now any type of conscious information is sort of scoffed at because a lot of people haven't been G-checked. And a lot of people are running around posturing themselves as leaders or claiming to be leaders. And they really don't know what they're talking about. A lot of them are winging it. But the only people they can fool, just like any false flagger, you can only fool the uninitiated. You can't really fool the people who know. And they try to bank on the fact that there's more people who don't know than there are who do know. So that's what that made me think of in terms of forming bonds and relationships, and not necessarily hoisting up a flag because you're behind it, but because you want them behind you, or you want them out in front of you, so that when stuff hits the fan, you got a nice shield to hide behind.
Greetings, greetings, peace. This is Utu. Give thanks for everybody's shares and everything. As I was listening to the conversation, a multitude of things popped out. But I'll keep it as brief as possible. Um, One of the things that I thought about was when it was spoken about, a certain era in the 80s and 90s and stuff when, you know, people were excited about the street culture and things like that. Um, I remember I was going through a transition into, gaining a little knowledge of self, and you know, um, there was a affiliation that I also had that I was transitioning from because I saw it as unhealthy as pertaining to what I was attempting to move toward, and and I met some friends that had younger cousins that were involved in some of the stuff that I was leaving behind. And I remember this one guy, Will. He was involved in some of that stuff, and I was attempting to, kind of show him that at least if he's going to be involved in it, try to learn what it's really about in terms of the original intentions of it, because that's really the original intentions of it was healthy. It was just that it had been corrupted through the environment that it was born in, basically. Like a lot of so-called Black Power organizations and things like that Chief spoke about earlier. developing in the 70s and things like that. The original intent was lost, and people came along just not really knowing what it was. Similar to how people go along with national flags like the United States flag and things like that. So all of those things stuck out to me. And the one thing that really stuck out to me, or what came to mind about the new flag in particular, um, is maintaining the principles that that will forever raise us up, you know, and moving forward on those, but also the concept of being able to resurrect through the different changes that we go through in life and our experiences in terms of organizations that come and go or are corrupt, that we seek to affiliate ourselves with and link ourselves with, that that maintain certain principles that I tend to hold valuable. So that's all I wanted to add. Give thanks for the bill.
All right, give thanks, give thanks. Well, shoot, we didn't build on it and built the dang on sandcastle with it. You know what I'm talking about? You can put a little flag up. Yay. But is there anything anyone else to say before we head on out of here?
Greetings. This is Ema Precious. Um, I was intentionally really quiet because this build session felt really like one for the brothers. Just listening to you all deliberate and really dissect the flag and all of the different iterations of what needs to happen in order for one to even imagine planting the flag was thought provoking, as well as the sisters who contributed. And as I listened, I was just thinking about the role of the woman. And so there's often this vision of, what the Western world describes as a union and a woman's role, or being unified or even married, if you will. But I think based on a lot of what you all shared, it made it really clear what our role is. And so I just made a few notes. Clearly, we're at the homestead managing, right? And as Chief said, um, knowing the heart of that man that we serve under and making sure that that's being maintained and safeguarded, which sets the expectation for a certain commitment and obedience and adherence to what the standard is. Because there can't be and I think in all of your sharing about what planting a flag requires, you're often not there. You're often somewhere else establishing your presence or establishing standard or governance. And so, therefore, um, our role is to wear the flag proudly and to make sure that that's what's being poured into the youth and the junior women. And so, I just wanted to offer that perspective on things and give thanks for the bill.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, if you want to come to a community that you're being trained to be a chief, you want to come to a community where you don't have to worry about your chief misleading you, you need to come to Anu.
All right, Suge,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, that's my death throw. You were talking about death throw, right? So I had to throw that in there.
Already. Um, anyone else? Just trying to wait for Marlene. See if she get there. But anyone else? Okay, looks like there ain't nobody else. So I just want to say give thanks to everybody that shared and constructed with the build and whatnot. And we will see you again next strong for another midday affirmative. You know what I'm talking about? So hey, have a good rest of your strong. and always end on the strong end, not the weak end. Know what I'm talking about? So yeah. Give
What's the
thanks,
next movie,
everybody.
Akila?
What you
What's
say?
the next movie?
Yeah.
What's the next movie for Thursday?
Oh, the next movie for what we understand is Drisham. Um that's the next movie.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Give thanks. But anyway, give thanks everybody and peace.
Peace.
That's what up.
Give thanks to the family. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks.
Give
Peace.
thanks. Peace.